I know what it feels like to question your worth, to feel as though you're not enough, or to carry the weight of insecurity in your heart. You find yourself second-guessing every decision, overthinking every word, and feeling the need to prove yourself to the world. Trust me, I've been there. But let me share something with you. There's a way out. A way to break free from that constant self-doubt and finally step into a life of peace, clarity, and confidence. It's not about chasing perfection or seeking approval from others. It's about going inward, finding stability in your own mind, and anchoring yourself in something far deeper than the fleeting opinions of the world. Today, I want to share with you some timeless truths, principles that helped me, and countless others, cultivate a steady, unshakable sense of self. These aren't just ideas, they're practices. Practices grounded in Buddhist teachings that will guide you to discover a confidence that comes from within. Let me tell you a story about a young monk I once met during a visit to a monastery. He had this calm presence about him, a quiet strength that radiated peace. I was curious, so I asked him, "How do you always seem so sure of yourself, so unbothered by what's happening around you?" He smiled and said something that struck me to my core. "I used to be just like you, always wondering if I was good enough, always worrying about what others thought. But one day, my teacher told me, 'You are chasing shadows. The more you run after them, the more they escape you. Stop running, sit still, see what is real.'" That monk didn't become calm and confident overnight. It took time, effort, and a willingness to look inward. But by following the path his teacher showed him, he learned to stop chasing validation and started living with purpose and clarity. As he shared this with me, I realized I had spent most of my life running after shadows too, trying to be someone I thought the world wanted me to be. But through Buddhist teachings, I learned how to stop, how to sit still, how to find the truth within myself. This is what I want to pass on to you today. Simple, powerful keys that can help you let go of insecurity and embrace your own unshakable peace. These keys aren't about being perfect. They're about being present, being real, and finding freedom from within. Let's begin. 1. The principle of non-attachment. Let me start with one of the most transformative truths I've ever encountered. The principle of non-attachment. I'm not talking about giving up everything you care about or living without passion. It's not about detachment in the cold, indifferent sense. Non-attachment is about freeing yourself from the unhealthy grip of clinging to people, to outcomes, to things that deep down you know you can't control. For the longest time, I struggled with this. I thought that holding on tightly to what I wanted, whether it was someone's approval, a certain goal, or even just a sense of security, was the only way to achieve it. But here's what really happened. The tighter I clung, the more anxious I became. The more I feared losing something, the more I suffered. Buddhism teaches that clinging is the root of suffering. It's part of the second noble truth, which explains that our attachment to desires and expectations is what traps us in cycles of dissatisfaction. And I can tell you from personal experience, the more you attach your worth to things outside yourself, the more fragile your confidence becomes. One day, a teacher of mine gave me a simple exercise that changed everything. She said, "Think about something you deeply want, a job, a relationship, recognition. Now ask yourself, what will happen if I don't get it?" At first I resisted the question because it scared me, but then I sat with it. I thought about the rejection, the disappointment, the uncertainty, and then I realized something powerful. Even without those things, I would still be here. I would still be enough. Non-attachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring without fear. It's the ability to love fully, work passionately, and pursue your dreams without being crushed if things don't go your way. Because the truth is, no matter how much you try, you can't control everything. But you can control how you respond. When I started practicing non-attachment, I noticed something incredible. My relationships became lighter because I wasn't suffocating them with my need for validation. My goals became clearer because I wasn't chasing them out of desperation, but out of a genuine desire to grow. I stopped feeling so weighed down by the fear of losing what I didn't really have control over in the first place. One practice that helped me tremendously was mindfulness meditation. I would sit in stillness and observe my thoughts, especially the ones tied to my attachments. Instead of pushing them away or clinging to them, I simply noticed them and let them pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. This taught me that thoughts and feelings are temporary. They don't define me. Another tool I used was gratitude. Instead of focusing on what I feared losing, I started appreciating what I already had. I'd write down 3 things I was grateful for every morning, and over time, it shifted my mindset. I became less focused on what I lacked and more connected to the abundance already in my life. The beauty of non-attachment is that it's liberating. It's like unclenching a fist you didn't realize you were holding. It's the freedom to live fully, love deeply, and strive boldly without being bound by fear. And trust me, once you experience that freedom, there's no going back. 2. Cultivating inner peace, equanimity. Now let's talk about equanimity, the calm, steady mind that doesn't get thrown off balance by life's ups and downs. If non-attachment is about letting go, equanimity is about standing firm. It's the ability to stay centered no matter what comes your way. I'll be honest with you, this wasn't easy for me. I used to think that my happiness depended on everything going smoothly. When things were good, I was on top of the world. But when something went wrong, a disagreement, a setback, even a harsh word from someone, I'd spiral. My emotions would swing like a pendulum, and I felt powerless to stop it. But here's the truth. Life is unpredictable. It's full of highs and lows, joys and sorrows. Equanimity doesn't mean ignoring those emotions or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means being able to experience them without being controlled by them. There's a beautiful Buddhist metaphor that explains equanimity. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a storm with strong winds blowing in every direction. Most people try to fight the wind, leaning one way or another to resist it. But the wise person stands firmly, rooted like a tree, allowing the wind to pass without being uprooted. One of the most practical ways I've learned to cultivate equanimity is through mindful breathing. Whenever I feel overwhelmed, I pause and take a few deep breaths. I focus on the sensation of air entering and leaving my body, and it grounds me in the present moment. It's such a simple practice, but it works wonders in calming the mind. Another thing that helped me was learning to accept impermanence. Nothing in life is permanent, not success, not failure, not even pain. When I truly embraced this, I stopped clinging to the highs and fearing the lows. Instead, I started seeing them as waves in the ocean, rising and falling naturally. One story that resonates deeply with me is about a monk who lost everything in a fire. His disciples expected him to be devastated, but instead he calmly said, "Now that the fire has burned it all, I am free to begin anew." That's equanimity, not denial, but acceptance. The understanding that life will continue no matter what happens. Equanimity also means not taking things personally. I used to get so caught up in what others thought of me. If someone praised me, I felt great. If someone criticized me, I felt crushed. But equanimity taught me that these opinions are just reflections of other people's perspectives, not truths about who I am. One practice I recommend is reflecting on your reactions at the end of the day. Think about moments when you felt thrown off balance. What triggered you? How did you respond? And most importantly, how could you respond differently next time? This kind of self-reflection is incredibly powerful for building resilience. Over time, equanimity becomes a way of life. You start to realize that peace doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from trusting your ability to handle whatever comes your way. When you live with equanimity, you stop feeling like a leaf blown by the wind. You become the tree, rooted in strength and calm. You start to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to grow. And that, my friend, is the kind of inner peace no one can take away from you. 3. Mindfulness of death, Maranasati. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly thought about the fact that one day you will no longer be here? For a long time, I avoided thinking about death. It felt heavy, frightening, even unnecessary. But then I came across the Buddhist practice of Maranasati, or mindfulness of death, and everything changed. Maranasati isn't about being morbid or obsessed with death. It's about using the awareness of our mortality to wake us up to the beauty and urgency of life. When I first started practicing this, it was like a fog lifted from my mind. I realized how much time I had wasted on things that didn't matter, worrying about what others thought, chasing superficial goals, and putting off what I truly cared about. In Buddhism, death is not something to fear, but a teacher, a reminder that life is precious because it is fleeting. One of the Buddha's teachings says, "Just as a dew drop on a blade of grass vanishes with the rising sun, so too does life pass away." That imagery stuck with me. Life is delicate, impermanent, and that's what makes it beautiful. When I began reflecting on death, it didn't make me anxious. It gave me clarity. I started asking myself, if today were my last day, would I be proud of how I lived it? And let me tell you, this question is a powerful one. It strips away all the distractions and helps you focus on what truly matters. Here's how I practice Maranasati. I set aside a few minutes each day to sit quietly and reflect on my mortality. I think about the reality that my time here is limited. At first, this was difficult. It felt overwhelming, but over time, it became a source of strength. It gave me the courage to let go of things that weren't serving me, like grudges, insecurities, and fears, and to embrace the things that truly bring joy and meaning. I also found that mindfulness of death helped me to live more authentically. When you know your days are numbered, you stop pretending to be someone you're not. You stop waiting for the right time to do what you love or to tell someone you care about them. You start living fully, in alignment with your values. One of the most liberating lessons Maranasati taught me is that we cannot control how long we live, but we can control how well we live. We can choose to meet each moment with kindness, gratitude, and presence. We can choose to leave behind a legacy of love and compassion. If you've never practiced mindfulness of death before, I encourage you to try it. Start small. Reflect on what you would do differently if you knew your time was limited. Let that awareness guide your choices, and don't let it frighten you. Let it set you free. Because here's the truth. When we embrace the reality of death, we begin to truly embrace life. 4. Living in the present moment. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Life only happens in the present moment. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right here, right now. For years, I was stuck in my mind, either replaying the past or worrying about the future. And you know what I missed? The present. The one place where peace, joy, and life actually exist. Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering comes from living anywhere but the present moment. We get trapped in regrets about the past or anxieties about what might happen next. I used to do this all the time. I'd replay conversations in my head, wondering if I said the right thing, or I'd obsess over what could go wrong in the future. But none of that thinking ever brought me peace. One day, a teacher asked me, "When you're drinking tea, are you truly drinking tea, or are you somewhere else in your mind?" That simple question stopped me in my tracks. I realized how often I let life slip by without really being present for it. Living in the present moment is about coming back to what's real, to what's happening right here and now. When you focus on the present, you free yourself from the burden of carrying the past and the weight of worrying about the future. You start to notice the little things: a smile from a loved one, the taste of your food, the feeling of the sun on your skin. One practice that transformed my ability to live in the moment is mindful breathing. Whenever I notice my mind wandering, I take a deep breath and anchor myself in the now. I focus on the sensation of air entering and leaving my body. It's such a simple act, but it has an incredible power to ground me. Another practice is gratitude. At the end of each day, I take a moment to reflect on the small joys I experienced, the kind words, the moments of peace, the things I often take for granted. This helps me stay connected to the present and reminds me of the beauty in everyday life. I won't pretend it's always easy. There are still days when my mind wants to pull me back into old habits of overthinking. But when that happens, I gently remind myself, come back. I don't judge myself for getting distracted. I just return to the present moment over and over again. When you start living in the present, something amazing happens. You stop rushing through life. You stop feeling like you're always behind. You start to see that this moment, this ordinary, imperfect, beautiful moment, is enough. And in that stillness, in that awareness, you find a kind of peace that no external achievement or possession can ever give you. That's the gift of living in the now, and it's a gift that's always waiting for you whenever you're ready to claim it. 5. Acceptance of impermanence, anicca. Let me share something I struggled with for a long time, holding on to things as if they were permanent. Whether it was a relationship, a moment of happiness, or even my own youth, I wanted everything I loved to stay exactly as it was, but life doesn't work that way. Change is inevitable, and the more we resist it, the more we suffer. In Buddhism, this truth is known as anicca, or impermanence. Everything in this world is transient. Our experiences, our possessions, even the people we love. For years, I fought this truth. I clung to the idea that if I could just control enough, plan enough, or hold on tight enough, I could avoid the pain of loss. But it didn't work. The harder I clung, the more painful it was when things inevitably changed. Then I came across a simple teaching. Everything that arises will pass away. At first it felt harsh, but the more I sat with it, the more I realized it wasn't meant to be cruel. It was meant to free me. When I began to accept impermanence, my perspective on life shifted completely. I stopped trying to freeze moments in time and started appreciating them for what they were, fleeting but beautiful. I began to see that the very nature of impermanence is what gives life its meaning. Think about it. A flower is beautiful not because it lasts forever, but because it blooms for a short while. The same goes for life's joys and even its challenges. When you accept that nothing lasts, you stop taking the good moments for granted and you stop fearing the bad ones. One practice that helped me embrace impermanence was reflecting on the changing nature of everything around me. I'd watch the seasons shift, notice how my own body changed over time, and observe how even my emotions rose and fell like waves. Instead of resisting these changes, I started to welcome them as natural and inevitable. Another powerful exercise was learning to let go. Whether it was an old grudge, an expectation, or even a material possession, I practiced releasing my grip on things that no longer served me. At first, it was uncomfortable, but with time, it became liberating. When you accept impermanence, you realize that clinging to the unchangeable is a losing battle. Instead, you learn to flow with life, to savor the moments as they come, and to let them go when they pass. This doesn't mean you care less. It means you care more deeply, because you understand how precious every moment truly is. Impermanence isn't something to fear. It's a reminder to live fully, love fiercely, and embrace life in all its fleeting beauty. And when you do, you'll find a peace that no amount of control could ever bring. 6. Living in harmony with the Dharma. Now let's talk about Dharma, one of the most profound concepts in Buddhism. Dharma is often translated as the truth or the way things are. It's the natural law that governs the universe, the guiding principles that keep everything in balance. For a long time, I thought living in harmony meant avoiding conflict or keeping the peace. But Dharma taught me that harmony isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about aligning your life with what is true, just, and meaningful. Living in harmony with the Dharma means recognizing that there is an order to life, a rhythm to existence, and our job is to move with it, not against it. Think of it like a river. You can fight the current, exhausting yourself trying to swim upstream, or you can let go and allow the river to carry you forward. I learned this lesson the hard way. There were times in my life when I tried to force things to happen my way, ignoring the natural flow of events. Whether it was chasing after a goal that didn't align with my values or holding on to a relationship that was no longer healthy, I kept swimming upstream, and it left me frustrated, drained, and unhappy. It wasn't until I started reflecting on Dharma that I realized the power of surrendering to life's flow. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that when you live in alignment with truth and virtue, life will unfold as it should. One of the most practical ways to live in harmony with the Dharma is to reflect on your actions. Are they motivated by kindness, wisdom, and compassion? Or are they driven by greed, anger, or fear? When you act in alignment with the Dharma, you create harmony not just within yourself, but also with the world around you. Another way to practice this is by embracing simplicity. Dharma teaches us that the more we complicate our lives with unnecessary desires and distractions, the further we drift from our natural state of peace. By focusing on what truly matters, connection, purpose, and inner growth, we return to the essence of who we are. Living in harmony with the Dharma doesn't mean life will always be easy. Challenges will still come. But when you're grounded in truth, you face them with strength and clarity. You stop fighting the current and start flowing with it. And here's the beautiful part. When you align yourself with the Dharma, life feels lighter. Decisions become clearer. You stop second-guessing yourself because you know you're living in accordance with something greater than your fleeting wants or fears. Dharma isn't just a concept. It's a way of life. It's about walking the path of truth, embracing the natural order of things, and finding peace in knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. When you live this way, insecurity fades, and you discover a deep, unshakable confidence rooted not in the external, but in the eternal. 7. The Path of Virtue, Sila. Let's dive deep into one of the most foundational and transformative teachings in Buddhism, Sila, or the Path of Virtue. Virtue is not just about following rules or doing what society expects. It's about living in alignment with your highest self, acting with integrity, and creating harmony in your life and the world around you. For many years, I misunderstood what it meant to live virtuously. I thought it was about being perfect, never making mistakes, and putting others before myself at all costs. But that approach led to burnout, resentment, and a lack of inner peace. I realized I was missing the true essence of Sila. Buddhism teaches us that virtue is the foundation for everything else: our peace of mind, our relationships, and our spiritual growth. Without virtue, it's like trying to build a house on unstable ground. No matter how much effort you put into it, it won't hold. The Buddha gave us 5 precepts as a guide to living virtuously. 1. Refraining from harming living beings. This means not only avoiding physical harm, but also cultivating kindness and compassion in our words and actions. 2. Refraining from taking what is not freely given. It's about respecting others' boundaries, possessions, and trust. 3. Refraining from sexual misconduct. This is about treating others with respect and honoring the sacredness of our connections. 4. Refraining from false speech. Honesty and truthfulness are cornerstones of virtuous living. 5. Refraining from intoxicants. This doesn't mean you have to completely abstain from everything, but it encourages mindfulness and clarity over recklessness. These precepts are not commandments, they're invitations to live more mindfully and authentically. When I started incorporating these principles into my daily life, I noticed profound changes. My interactions with others became more meaningful, and I began to trust myself in a way I never had before. Let me share a personal experience. There was a time when I struggled with honesty, especially when I thought the truth might upset someone or put me in an uncomfortable situation. I would tell little white lies, thinking they didn't matter. But over time, those lies began to weigh on me. I felt disconnected from myself and constantly worried about being found out. When I committed to the precept of truthfulness, it was challenging. I had to confront my fears of rejection and discomfort. But as I practiced honesty, something amazing happened. I started to feel lighter. My relationships deepened because they were built on trust, and I felt a sense of integrity that I hadn't known before. Another transformative aspect of Sila is the practice of harmlessness. This doesn't just mean refraining from physical harm, it extends to your words and thoughts. How often do we criticize or judge others, even if only in our minds? I used to do this without realizing the damage it caused, not just to others, but to myself. Those judgments kept me in a state of negativity and separation. When I began practicing kindness and compassion, it wasn't just others who benefited, I did too. I noticed that when I chose to see the good in people, I felt more peaceful and connected. Even in difficult situations, choosing kindness gave me strength. One of the most profound lessons I've learned is that virtue isn't about being perfect. It's about striving to do your best, learning from your mistakes, and aligning your actions with your values. At the end of the day, living virtuously is about self-respect. When you act with integrity, you build a solid foundation for inner peace and confidence. A daily practice that helped me deepen my connection to virtue was reflection. At the end of each day, I'd ask myself a few simple questions. Did I act with kindness and honesty today? Were my actions in line with my values? How can I do better tomorrow? This wasn't about beating myself up for falling short. It was about learning and growing. Over time, this practice became a source of strength and clarity. When you walk the path of virtue, you create harmony not just within yourself, but in the world around you. You stop second-guessing yourself because you know your actions are rooted in what's right, and that kind of confidence is unshakable. 8. The practice of self-mastery, samadhi. Now let's turn to samadhi, the practice of self-mastery. If there's one thing I've learned on my journey, it's that true freedom doesn't come from controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. For much of my life, I felt like a prisoner to my thoughts and emotions. A single negative comment could ruin my day. A fleeting desire could throw me off course. I was constantly reacting to life instead of responding with intention. It wasn't until I started practicing samadhi that I understood the power of a disciplined mind. Samadhi is often translated as concentration or mental absorption, but it's much more than that. It's the ability to center yourself, to stay steady in the face of life's storms, and to act with clarity and purpose. The Buddha described the mind as a wild elephant. If left unchecked, it can wreak havoc, but when trained, it becomes a powerful ally. Self-mastery is the process of taming this wild mind. It's not about suppressing your thoughts and emotions. It's about observing them, understanding them, and choosing how to respond. Meditation is the cornerstone of samadhi. When I first started meditating, I struggled to sit still. My mind would wander, and I'd get frustrated with myself. But then I realized something important. Meditation isn't about stopping your thoughts. It's about watching them without getting caught up in them. Each time my mind wandered, I'd gently bring my focus back to my breath. This simple act of returning again and again built a sense of discipline and calm. Over time, I noticed that this practice extended beyond meditation. In my daily life, I became less reactive, more patient, and more present. Another key aspect of self-mastery is restraint. This doesn't mean denying yourself. It means being mindful of your impulses and choosing what serves your higher self. For example, there were times when I wanted to lash out in anger or give in to procrastination. But through samadhi, I learned to pause, reflect, and make intentional choices. One of the most powerful tools for cultivating self-mastery is mindful observation. Whenever I felt overwhelmed by an emotion, I'd take a step back and ask myself, what triggered this feeling? Is it helpful or harmful? How do I want to respond? This simple process gave me space to act with intention instead of reacting impulsively. Self-mastery isn't something you achieve overnight. It's a daily commitment to showing up for yourself, even when it's hard. It's about building the mental and emotional strength to face life's challenges with grace. What's incredible about samadhi is that it transforms every aspect of your life. When you master your mind, you're no longer swayed by external circumstances. You become steady, focused, and unshakable. And here's the most beautiful part. Self-mastery leads to true freedom. When you're no longer controlled by your thoughts, emotions, or impulses, you can fully engage with life. You can face challenges without fear, pursue your goals with clarity, and cultivate a sense of peace that no one can take away. Samadhi isn't just a practice, it's a way of being. And when you commit to it, you'll discover a strength within yourself that you never knew was possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's one lesson from today's video that resonated with you the most? Or do you have a personal story about overcoming insecurity that you'd like to share? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might inspire someone else on their journey. If you found value in this video and want more practical wisdom from Buddhist teachings, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let's grow together on this journey toward inner peace and confidence.